Public comment period 1. That's microphone's on me. Be a few moments there. She's signing in. First person to speak will be Linda Curry, and her project is the BASH project.
I just have a question regarding item number 6. It says here BASH project architect, KCBA Architects. Have you already hired them, or is the presentation in regard to a future hiring? Because I don't recall ever sitting in a meeting, and I do attend all of them, where the board had hired them. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Ruth Baker, Senior High Building Project.
Notwithstanding that you have new architectural folks here tonight, I would hope that you would go back and look at the population data, because if you look at the census data, the number of kids who go to private school and
Ruth,
never show up in the...
excuse me.
Yes.
I think you're one meeting ahead of time. This is a facilities meeting where we're talking about this. And you're talking about the census, I believe.
I'm talking about the population projections and the feasibility study that EI did.
Okay.
So please go back to the original population basis and you'll see we don't need this expansion renovation, and we don't need a new elementary school either. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one, Chris Nyman.
I'll wait
No topic.
I'll wait for the next one. Basically what I was going to say, so.
That's the last person then. Now, approval of the minutes of the August 20th meeting. Need a motion? Steve? Gwen, second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And next is a presentation by Dr. Quigley.
Thank you, Mr. Crossley. Welcome, members of the community. It's nice to see such a large number of people interested in what's going on in our district. So let me go ahead and get started. The first part of this evening, I will be giving a very brief presentation and rationale behind some of the recommendations that I have made or will be making to the board this evening. If you rewind the clock and you go back to the point in time where we engaged members of the community, teachers, administrators, community members, business leaders, they were involved in a process in the creation of a comprehensive plan. Those 65 individuals who were part of that process were divided into 3 subcommittees that developed strategies and action steps to meet the future needs of the district. And this became what we can refer to as a roadmap to continue progress in the Boyertown Area School District. As part of that process in the comprehensive plan development, there were some indicators of effectiveness and key strategies that were identified. One of those strategies or 2 of those goals focused on an academy concept at our high school and a movement towards a progressive movement towards educating our students for the 21st century. We know, those of you sitting in the audience, that the needs of our students are different today than they were 20 years ago. Their expectations are different, and as a community we need to come together and do what's best for the continued success of our students. So as part of that conversation, ideas came up that were creative and provided opportunities for advanced programming. We need to continue to think about the future of all students in our district, and one approach to doing that is to look at the renovation of our high school. And our high school is the one building in the district that impacts all students who come through our K-12 system. By moving through and creating space in our high school through a renovation project, we have the capability of moving our 9th grade students to the high school campus, which will also allow us to take a look at our current junior high schools and moving forward, taking the 6th graders from the elementary school and moving them into an environment that allows for a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade structure. There have been a lot of comments that I've received from community members regarding the size of some of our elementary schools, some of the efforts and some of the recommendations to deal just directly with our elementary population. One of the jobs of the superintendent is to listen to the community, to take feedback and process that feedback and move forward to the board with solid recommendations for the future that will set the table, so to say, for an ongoing environment that creates success for all students. I truly believe that the recommendation that you're listening to this evening from me is the best option that we have to guarantee continued success in customizing our learning in an age where customization and personalized learning and smaller learning communities are a necessity for educational success. So the academy concept provides us an opportunity to provide rigor, to provide relevance. Not that we don't provide rigor and relevance currently, but what the research trends tell us is that students who learn in a smaller learning environment that is more personalized to them, in a more personalized learning environment, are able to achieve greater success. It's been demonstrated over and over across our nation. Large amounts of dollars have been generated in the private sector to garner support for these types of movements. This is not a fad. This is good, solid education. Anytime that you can take a learning environment, which is quite large in a high school, and break it into smaller components, the teachers have a better opportunity to connect with students. And those relationships between the students and the adults are what are going to create the excitement and passion for learning that will propel our students to become productive citizens in the 21st century, whether they pursue higher education, whether they go directly into the workforce. Students in an academy concept, I keep mentioning the 21st century skills. The workplace is much different, and those in the private sector can probably attest to the fact that more and more of the skill sets needed for successful workers in our society are the ability to collaborate, the ability to develop and work in a team environment, the ability to be able to communicate and be creative in what they do in the workplace. Many of the jobs that our students are going to pursue in their lifetime, our kindergartens that walk through the door on the first day of school, jobs that they're going to occupy don't exist yet. So we need to create an environment in our school system that encourages creativity, that encourages education and interest, education that's centered on student interest and their excitement for learning. We also can't ignore the fact that students today need an environment that is more nurturing. And when you have a large-scale environment, it doesn't afford the opportunities for those connections to be made. So part of the academy concept allows for additional mentoring, not that we don't mentor kids currently, but it creates an environment for our teachers to advise and mentor students in a much different way. I speak to you tonight regarding the concept of a middle school. And I could provide probably 2 hours worth of information to you on how important it is for us to identify the needs of this particular population. And I know you can read for yourself the information that's on the slide. But you know, sitting in the audience, those of you who have middle school age students, those pre-teens and early teens, that their needs are much different than those of seniors and juniors and sophomores in high school. So we need to create an environment that focuses somewhat on an affective plane, where the education of the whole child is a focus at that developmental stage of life. Again, this information is all backed by tremendous volumes of research on what is effective and the best approach to educating children in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I will attest to the fact that being an educator at the high school level and also moving in my career down to the middle level, it takes a different style to reach students at that level. They're dealing with a lot of things in their life and changes in their life, where the support structures that we put in place are extremely important. So I've talked to you about a couple of things that the renovation project at the high school will address. Number one, it will address the fact of moving the 9th graders to the high school level, where they will have many more opportunities educationally to take courses at the higher level. Number two, it will create an environment where we as a district can move forward with a middle school concept. And then the third is what you see on the screen right now, is the de-stressing of the elementary schools. We know, data shows us, and we've talked about this in board meetings, where we have some issues with our population at our elementary level. We would like to continue to afford the opportunity for a neighborhood school concept. The de-stressing of the elementary schools with the two factors that I shared with you previously will allow us to do that for the next several years. And will also create an opportunity to have conversations about progressive education at the elementary level, not saying that we're going to move to full-day kindergarten, but it sure would be nice to be able to have an option in the future if we need to provide that support and it is feasible and the board wishes to move that direction, to at least have the conversation and have the space available for us to pursue that. We also know that we have some significant needs in our district, aside from the fact of building new space at the high school. We have capital improvement needs at our current school in that 1992 building, with our roof, with our AC, with our plumbing, what is referred to as MEP. And we also have a need to look at, again at a national level, the increased attention to campus safety. So the renovation of this high school project will allow us to look at that as well, and to create an environment for our students that enhances the safety of that building and improves the safety of that building. What I propose to you is something that is different than what you've heard in the past. I believe that there is tremendous value in the utilization of the old 1938 building that exists on that campus, and I think that exploring the renovation of that building and using that building potentially as a place to house portions of the academy will significantly reduce the costs associated with this project. Now, the million-dollar question is, what are the costs? Well, we can't tell you what the costs are until we do a thorough analysis and we move to the next step. It is a shame that the information that we have received as a district and this board has heard over the course of the last year that was shared with them was inaccurate. But we have to realize that whatever we do as a community, as a board, as school leaders, is it is important for us to make sure we have accurate data. So we need somebody that we can trust. We have a construction manager that we have brought on that has uncovered some of this information for us with a previous architect. We also have in the audience tonight in the architect group that has done extensive work in the district that is very credible, trustworthy, and that is going to walk you through a process and a presentation where that information is able to be gathered and the checks and balances are in place from the beginning. So at some point in the future, we can come back to the community and to the board with information on exact parameters of costs and what we're getting for our dollars. So my recommendation that I will share with you is to, number one, use the 3-story building and factor that into the equation to reduce costs, overall costs of the project, to engage a very highly reputable architect with demonstrated experience in this district that has delivered what he said he was going to deliver on time and on budget, and to look at ways to reduce the new construction square footage, because new construction typically costs quite a bit more than renovation of existing structure. So I think from the standpoint of what my recommendation is as superintendent, as the leader of the district and leader of the team that's worked together through this process, is to start setting the table with information that the community can understand, number one. Number two, they can trust that the information they're receiving is transparent. And number three, that at every step of the way, there are items that are what I would refer to as deliverables that we can hold people accountable to delivering, and then ultimately bring to the board at some future date. The cost structure, what that cost is, and allow the board and the community to hear throughout that process what those figures are, so that everyone can make an informed decision moving forward. Thank you. I think, yeah, we can take questions from the board if the board has questions.
Any questions or comments on this?
But I do want to make sure we allow time for the real meat of the meeting is to hear the architect and the construction manager's presentation.
Anybody in the board have questions? Have questions on the presentation? Okay, thank you. The next is, turn it to you, Dave.
Okay, as we know, we do not have an architect of record right now for our project, and we have gone back to a architectural firm that has produced for the Boyertown School District on several projects previously, and asked them to submit a proposal. So tonight we have Jay Clough and Eric Gianelli from KCBA Architects here to hand out their proposal, which you got electronically yesterday. Hope you had a chance to review it. It's kind of long, but I think it's very informative. And we will have Jay Clough come and address the committee right now. I think before we do that, though, I do believe, oh, you're going to tag team, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We may not have enough, so some of the audience may need to share, but we did bring several copies of the proposal. To answer the first question, are we hired? No, we are not. We're here to tell you how we might help you. Share one. Okay, do we get them all distributed? Okay, you'll have to be good neighbors and share, please. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, well, it's good to be back. I spent an awful lot of time in this room over the last 15 years. My name is Jay Clough, and I'm a principal of KCBA Architects. If you go to the introduction page, which is, I guess, the second page in, it's got 3 dots on it. Maybe it's the 3rd page in. You'll get one with the, there you go, 3 dots, or a series of dots on it. you will see what the superintendent was mentioning, that third dot from the top. We spent a lot of time in the district over the years, worked on the additions to Washington Elementary School, worked on the additions to Gilbertsville Elementary School, Junior High East, Junior High West. I think really it's noteworthy that we also worked on the Senior High Art Wing, so we have a pretty good experience with the former high school on the corner of Monroe and Fourth. We also did numerous studies and roof upgrades and capital projects, so we know you. We've been around here, and hopefully you will remember, some of you will remember me, as honest, good working people to try to make things happen. We are doing two very similar projects. One's in Pottsgrove, your neighboring district, and it's again renovations, additions to the high school. Just finishing the last phase of a 4-year project at Central Bucks East. High school working around thousands of kids, thousands of students and staff over many, many years. So we do have that experience. And finally, we have 16 projects with Dewey, your project manager. There's no learning curve. We appreciate what they do. We respect each other, beat on each other from time to time, and that's okay. You'd like to see that too, I'm sure. It's a team. So those are the kind of the background on the firm, if you will, and why am I here? You're like, what is going on? I was summoned to a meeting by the superintendent, the business manager, and basically I was given an assignment. How do you return the project back to the board? How does the board get control of the project? How does the district have an idea what's going on? And how can this thing be a successful project? Okay, the first piece, I believe, I'm very feeling strongly about that. You have to have a team. You have to have a team that you can trust. And I brought with me, because I thought it was important that you meet some of the key team members. If you go to the back of the book, I think it starts at about page 15. I think those that got emailed, we didn't have numbers on it. So if you're working from an email, it's tab 2. And we describe in great detail the team that we put together. And I don't have a lot of time to talk about the specifics of each member, but I brought 3 key people with me tonight. And what I'm going to do is have each one come into the mic, introduce themselves, and tell a little bit about, their history with the district and what they would intend to do in the project. I'm going to start with Eric Gianelli, who again is another owner and principal at KCBA, and also your project manager.
Thanks, Jay. My name's Eric Gianelli. I'll be your project manager. I'll be the day-to-day contact, and if you need anything, you just give me a call and I will be here. I will make any time you need to be here on site. I have over 20 years experience. I'm an expert in multi-prime contracts. And I have a lot of experience on renovations on projects where we maintain the faculty and students on site. We work with Dewey to develop phasing plans so that we can facilitate the construction, maintain safety for the kids, safety for your faculty, your staff, and any visitors that come to the campus, while maintaining a very an environment for learning that the students need to be successful. So, we build these into the documents. It's something that we do. We work with Paul. We'll work with your facility people on your mechanical systems. So I'll be the lead on that, and I will, make sure we stay on schedule, stay on cost. One of the things we do with cost, we will work with Dewey. That cost item is a daily thing that we look at. We'll have regular weekly meetings with your staff, and if anything adjusts, we adjust that the cost of the estimated cost of the construction. We work on that every day, so that if anything adjusts, we let you know. So there's no, you get the end of DDs and, oh, here's the price. We know it as we go. So whether it's schematics and or conceptual, we work with them on that on a daily thing. So I just want to let you know, we don't just wait until milestones. We do it as we go along.
And Eric, you forgot to tell
Oh,
project manager on?
I was a project manager over at Junior High East. I worked with Paul, and it was a very successful project. The students were able to maintain a good environment, and we were on budget and on time.
Gene Hoffman, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, big piece of the project.
Yes. Good evening. I'm a principal with the firm Snyder Hoffman Associates. We're a 20-person MEP firm. We were formed in 1987, and the 3 founding principals are still with the firm, and most of the other employees are long-timers as well. We would, under MEP, would be doing the HVAC, the plumbing and fire protection, all of the electrical systems, power lighting technology, fire alarm, communications systems, On our staff, we have 4 PEs, that's professional engineers, registered professional engineers, and also 3 lead accredited professionals. We're proud that we've been working with KCBA on projects. Even before our firm that we have now was formed, we were working with them at the previous firm. We have 30 years experience with them and have done actually over 100 successful projects with them. And many of those have been public schools. We also have experience with Dewey Engineering. We've worked on quite a few projects with them. It's a good relationship. The projects between them and KCBA and our input have come in on budget and have been successful projects. 2 of them recently is one was in the Northampton School District and one in the Northern Lehigh School District. In the way of lead experience, we have lead experience on about 16 projects. 2 of them that I'm really proud of were done with KCBA. There were 2 major high schools in Lower Merion School District, Lower Merion High School and Harrison High School. They both started out as silver projects and they both achieved gold certification. So we're very proud of those. We also do all of our major projects using BIM, which is Building Information Systems. It's a 3D way of doing the drawings so that we can see when we do the drawings, say that the ductwork's drawn 3D, well, first they do the building in 3D, and then we do our drawings in 3D so that we can see that things fit in the building. It reduces change orders and things like that. We also have experience with the school district. We've done most of the projects that KCBA has done in the district. We also worked recently directly for the school district on some athletic field lighting. We had a problem with the poles rusting, I believe, so we took care of that in expediently, I believe. So that worked out well for us and for you too, I hope. I have some expertise in analyzing HVAC systems in particular, and our staff has experience in analyzing the electrical systems, plumbing systems, fire protection systems, and I believe that would be our first order of business if we were successful in obtaining this job, is to go into the high school and the 3-story building alongside of it, evaluate the MEP system, see what can be reused, see what can't, make recommendations, and work together with Dewey and KCBA to come up with budgets. So, thank you.
And the last piece that I brought tonight, because it's very, very critical in this part of the world, is the land development and civil engineering, and this is Glenn Harris.
Thanks, Jay. My name is Glenn Harris. I represent Renew Design Group. We are a civil engineering and landscape architecture land planning firm that would be working with KCBA as a consultant on the project to seek land development approvals, all the approvals necessary for a project of this type, whether they be sewer, water from the Pennsylvania DEP, stormwater management, all the things that are critical today in the land planning, the land development process. I'm also pleased to be here tonight as a resident of Boyertown Area School District. I've lived here for many, many years, and I commend you, the board, for looking at this particular project and what it might mean to the community that I'm a member of. I graduated 2 kids from Boyertown Area High School, and 2 other of my kids went to Boyertown schools. I think very highly of the educations that they received. Our firm, in the process of working with KCBA, has really a lot of experience. I have a lot of personal experience. For many years I worked in their firm as an employee of their firm, as an in-house landscape architect. I know their firm very well, and when I left their firm I went to work for the engineering side of the design world and continued to work with their firm as well, and have had great experiences in that process. Our firm is also very experienced in the land development engineering aspect of school projects in particular. Recently we completed the Upper Dublin High School project on Route 309, and that was a project with Dewey Engineers as well. A very complicated project. It took a number of years to complete in a number of phases. And, required the operation of a school to remain in process during that time. And if you can imagine how the traffic needed to work and how the students had to be segregated in safe locations, it was a difficult project, but we persevered with Dewey Engineers' help and were able to complete a successful project there. Another recent project that we've completed has been down in the Phoenixville Area School District, and I was reminded of how similar that project was when I realized that the Boyertown Area High School is split between two municipalities, Boyertown Borough and Coaldale Township, and we achieved the same situation in Phoenixville between Phoenixville Borough and Schuylkill Township, where the engineer in Schuylkill Township is in fact the same engineer for the township of Coaldale. So we have experience working with that engineer. We know what his parameters are, and we feel that we can bring a successful land development process to the Boyertown Area High School if we were to progress with that project. And I thank you for your time this evening, just to be able to introduce myself. Thanks.
Okay, so we got the key team members, those with time on their hands can look through the book at any time. I've listed all the others. They're all equally qualified, equally accountable. I think what we're talking about here is somebody's got experience, somebody's got knowledge, but also I think somebody that has a history of working together. It's kind of important. We want to hit the ground running. No learning curves, and people that have 20, 30-year histories with our firm, so we make sure we do it correctly. We're going to try to be a team that works very closely with all of you. I don't know if that happened in the past or not, but that's our goal. We're going to try to be a team that is good listeners. And this might hurt your feelings, but we're going to be a team that from time to time is going to say, you just can't afford it. Okay, I don't think you heard that before. I don't think you did. We're going to be honest up front and tell you when we're going to, as a group, make some really, really tough choices. That's one reason we bring to the room. It's tough, but you can do that. We really put together a strategy, that's a pretty tall order. How do you put the board back in control? Working closely with Dewey, we put a strategy together to do that, and Aretha's going to talk a little bit about the second piece then. We got a team, now we need a strategy. How do you get accountability?
Just a minute, before we go any further, anybody have any questions for KCBA?
I'm coming back. He's just an insert here.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to the next part.
He's got
of the
another
agenda.
piece all his own, but he's part of this process.
All right.
Sorry to confuse you.
Excuse me.
Good evening. Aretha Fazil with Dewey Engineering, and I have with me John Hartman, who's handing out the handouts, and Bob Gilly is also here today. I'll correct Jay on one thing, which is even before we were hired, I think we cautioned you on what we had seen. So that was the only part that I actually felt somewhat that I could sleep at night after the predicament that this school district was in. When I officially gave you the news, is that even before we were hired, we indicated to you concerns with what we had seen. And I think all of you were here when I actually made that clear. And I think you trusted us enough to engage us, and for that we thank you. But it has been a difficult process to date. And so what I did is I wanted to re-ground you on a couple of things. If you remember when we were first here to educate you a little bit on the process, we talked to you a little bit about exactly what Jay said, and I agree with him, is the district has to maintain control of the project. And that was one of our priorities, to always make sure you remain in control of the project. I also listed 4 other priorities, and there was a bunch of others, but I'll remind you of just 4 of them. Our job was for cost control management for you. Our job was for schedule control management. It was for quality control. And the last piece was final outcome. And the final outcome was to make sure what your expectations are is what was being delivered in that cost and scope that we were evaluating. And in the end, the result would only be successful if it really met your final outcome. So those are kind of our 4 priorities, and you've heard Jay's team talk about cost a couple of times that the various members have said. So what we said is, okay, how do we just re-ground it? If you look at this handout and walk through it with me, we are on page 1 of 2, and what we're talking about right now is a concept planning phase. And if you look, it's just like Dr. Fagley said, we've identified deliverables. So there have to be some specific deliverables that are provided to the board, to the community, before fees are paid out. And the board has an input and direction at each of these stages before you go to the next stage. And it needs to be some specific input and direction. It can't be, we'll just go to the next phase and hope for the best. It needs to be specific. It needs to be said, we agree, now we go to the next phase. Or we agree, but make 2 changes. Or we agree, but revise this. Okay? So concept planning and phase, I have a whole list of things. And I'm not going to necessarily read this. And by the way, on the top of this, it says, see attached for details. John and I have put together, there's what, a 6-page list that supports this document. And by the way, Jay, because they operate this way, had no problem with this and is willing to integrate this into his contract, which is currently under consideration by you, obviously. So, if you look at the deliverables, it says we're going to start with the functions, square footage requirements, adjacencies, and equipment needs. We're even going to look at the site plan at this early stage. We're going to look at what the schedule is. We're obviously going to look at the budget, okay? And then we're going to collectively review and reconcile that information so that collectively we come to you with information that you can rely on, as Dr. Faley said. And then you're going to give us board input and direction. And we're estimating that we think we can do that within 2 months. It requires a lot of effort on the district's part, and it requires a lot of effort on your part also. And once that is agreed upon and the input and direction is given, then we can go to what's called schematic design. Okay, and I'm not going to walk through all of that, but at each of these areas, and if you look in schematic design, the second to last bullet before it says board input and direction, it says status of submissions to approval agencies. So it still has all those other same things. And by the way, it doesn't just say we're going to fix something. If they look at the schedule, it says, what are we doing with roofs? What are we doing with ceilings? What are we doing with sprinklers? What are we doing with HVAC? What are we doing at every one of these stages? In increasing levels of detail. Because obviously at the first stage, you're not going to have a lot of detail, but as you move on, the detail increases in information at each level. Okay? And so you get more information. And you get more information to reach that decision and give us direction. So then you're done with schematic design. And if you look, at that point, Jay's committed to about 10% of his fee only. But by that point, if we're moving ahead, our success history, we do concept design, budgeting, and scope for many, many districts. And I haven't had one. If you do it right and you spend the time up front, the rest of the project will be about details. It won't be about the big picture anymore. It'll be about details. And that's what the goal is. And that's what I understand your goal is. I understand Dr. Fagley's goal is to bring to you the information. And then just look at all the phases. Then we go through design development phase. That's Plan Con D. You guys, on the last project, were in construction documents phase. And by the way, at some point I'm going to have to talk, but that's when we were brought in. That's what our contract says. That's where we were brought in. Because I know last meeting I wasn't here and there was some discussion as to why, we're requesting some consideration to do this. And I'll talk to you about that at the end, but I'm setting the stage for why. This kind of frames out the different stages of work. And then you get into contract construction documents. Oh, sorry.
Give us try to cut it brief. We have another meeting at 7 o'clock. So give us as brief as you can.
I've only been on for 3 minutes, and I promise you it'll be 10 seconds more and I'll.
And then if we have any questions, we'll ask you questions afterward.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure you understand because the steps here need, I'm just trying to ground you into the steps that are necessary and for the public so that it's a systematic, diligent step. So if you're already familiar with it, I'll stop and you can ask me questions. But I'll pass it on to Jay.
I'm not saying we're familiar with it, but
okay.
If you have any questions, we'll try to address questions.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I'll give it back to Jay.
One more piece. By the way, those that have the handouts, all those attachments that'll be part of the contract and are part of the scope that we've talked about, pages 4 through 14, they're all in there. Okay, so real quick, proposal. Basically, if you look at page 1 and 2, it is our proposal. It basically says, up until design development, we work as a percent of construction cost. We figure by design development, everybody has a pretty good idea of what we're doing because we've checked it 3 times using the system that REAP is proposing. At that point, we will fix our fee. It will be a fixed fee regardless of what happens before, after following that. So that should give you some assurance. If you look down the list, all the things you'd expect to need to build a building are there. The obvious ones like architects and structural engineers, and some of the less obvious ones like lead consultants, the fellow that helped us go from being hired to do silver and actually attaining gold. That's for gold for you. Why not? Why not? And I think acoustics and kitchen design, it's all in there. Basically, it says in there, we're going to keep coming, and we've proved this years in and year out for all the different projects. You want us here, we'll have somebody here. So we're going to keep coming as often as you want. And basically, if you look at the bottom, you are only, the footnotes on page 2, you're only authorizing each phase as they come up. We're not going to move from one phase to the other until everybody in the room has a consensus that, yeah, we're ready to move. If we're not, we'll stay on that phase until we get it straightened out, because we have to. And basically, all that stuff would be recorded. These bullet points on these 2 pages would be rolled into an AIA contract, which your solicitor has now. So believe me, you'll be in good shape. She's not going to let anything happen. And she has that in her hands at this moment. So that's kind of it. That's the package. Our handout intends to address the question, how do you put the project back in the control of the district and the board? Mr. Crosby, we're ready to go with questions.
Okay, any questions? Steve?
Yes, so the team that you put together, I have a few questions. One is, it looks like there's a tremendous amount of experience with your team.
I want people that I can just pick up the phone and get a response, yes.
How much experience in renovating older buildings? In our case, we have a 1919 building, 1934.
Right. I know it well.
So,
We worked in it a couple of times.
okay.
We put the windows in it in the 1980s.
Okay, well, I think we're talking more than windows. So.
I understand what you're talking about. I would say
What's your experience level?
our team across the board has more experience in renovations than we have new, because not that many new buildings get built. We're lucky to have new ones, and we like that. In your district, I never did a new building for you. In all the years I worked here, 15 years, we did additions and renovations. I'd love to do a new building. Let's do a new building. I'm going to mess with it. So we have, we have a lot of experience with it, and that's why I put this team together. You know, these people, the guys that are in that book, all have a tremendous amount of renovation.
But just so I'm walking away with a clear understanding, I understand renovations, but to a 1919 or older building.
I will invite you to our office. Our office is a 1930s building in an old bank in Hatfield, and I'm so proud of it. So we started in an office space like that, and we continue.
I've worked on the Reading Terminal head house. It turned into a Marriott. So that we converted that, had wood floors. We were to convert that while maintaining fire safety and codes. Adapt that. So I have, I was a manager on that. It took 2 years to convert it. So I have extensive experience on older buildings, especially the ones that were historically registered. So if that helps.
Yeah, well, that was the crux of my question. The second piece is experience with, and I noticed it's an exclusion of your contract, hazardous material testing and remediation.
That is just an insurance issue. We will help coordinate that. I don't think any architects, or very few architects, are licensed. That's basically asbestos and lead.
Yeah.
And what we do is work with, usually the district has somebody that maintains their HERO reports and all that, and we work with them on that. It's not that we're going to run away from that, we just don't have licenses to do that. Heart surgeons don't do back surgery, that kind of thing. So that's, on all the projects we've done for you, and again, there were more than none on that book, but there are 5 or 6 in there, that's how it was done.
And the construction management team, if I could ask, same question, experience with hazardous materials?
On every project.
Yeah, every renovation project is loaded with stuff like
To
that.
answer your question, we did Liberty High School Commons building. It's a 1920 vintage building. renovated that entire building. We've done projects at March Elementary School in the Historic District in Easton. We've done projects all over that are 1900 vintage buildings, and even the 60s and 50s buildings have sometimes more hazardous materials, actually.
So extensive experience is what
Yeah,
I'm hearing.
and Ashley, in talking to Paul, because we're somewhat familiar with your building, most of your buildings don't have that much at this point. He's done a good job of managing them.
Thank you.
My question is basically more for clarification. My question is more for clarification, so I really understand what your intent is when you come into this project, if you come into this project, if we say yes. You broke out the phases. So my understanding is at each point in this phase, you will be giving the board feedback to move forward to the next phase.
Better than
which is-
feedback, hard information so the board can share in the decision-making.
Okay, and that's the main difference, the huge difference from what we had experienced with the last architectural firm, correct?
I would assume so, I wasn't here, but that's, our goal is to give you the information, so you can go to the grocery store on the weekend and just look at a taxpayer and say, this is why we did what we did. I have a sound basis for what I'm doing. I made trade-offs, this is why we didn't do some things. Yes, give you the information so you'll have it.
Okay, so if I look at the first phase, the concept planning phase, which is approximately a 2-month timeline, you would be working on all those bullet points there and then giving us feedback, or would we have feedback like a month after or a week
No,
after?
we'll go along.
How often would we be getting feedback on what's happening?
Normally, we attend the board meetings or the facilities meetings that you would like, and we give you updates, because I don't think we want to just have 3 or 4 looks at this with you. We would like to really, that's probably the key. That phase is probably the one that's really going to make or break us, okay? We're going to try to get off to a better start than last time and really understand what something is worth when you ask for it. What are the implications about asking for it? So yes, we do not want to disappear. This would not work. We would like to get the information to you by written form. We will have people come to facilities meetings. If you need a special town meeting or two, we held those. But what it takes to get out there is what we're willing to do. We need communication.
Jay, we would have weekly meetings with your leadership committee, so the information will be flowing to everybody.
Okay, so if you had the weekly meetings, then we would be getting weekly
You get minutes, you'll
reports
get
with our
minutes.
newsletters and that kind of thing.
That is correct.
Yes.
We make a written record of all meetings between Dewey and our firm. There's a written record of any meeting that takes place. If Glenn meets off-site with somebody else, he'll put something together so everybody knows what he's doing as well. It's
Okay.
so key, it's so key.
It is, obviously. Thank you.
Good.
Well, unless I'm missing something or need glasses, what is the scope of your work going to be? I don't see what you're doing. I hear you're remodeling the high school, the old high school, the 3-story section, but is there anything else?
We are told that you want to proceed with taking the 9th grade out of the junior high and placing it into the high school. We are on board to do that and to renovate the high school. So that is what the scope is. The scope is to initiate the high school project.
So are we talking the same size project as we had in the past?
You can't.
Not necessarily.
You cannot.
Well, I'd like to know what we're talking about.
We're talking about a
Adding how many-
we are talking about a $55 million project that is actually $55 million. Excuse me. That's what we're talking about.
Are we adding any extra square footage? Are we just going to work on both buildings and not have any extra square footage?
You will not be able to put 9th grade in there without adding some square footage, but you will not be able to add the amount of square footage that you have. And the first conceptual planning stage is where we can really, really determine that. So our goal is to look at what it would take, your initial feasibility study, put 9th grade in the high school, put academies in the high school, and make those capital projects, but for $55 million, and something might have to go.
And when you're looking at this, are we talking about a road going down to the side of the, was that Monroe Street?
What we're talking about is putting all those ideas back on the table, and I've only, I'm hitting the ground running here, and seeing what they cost, and seeing what their viability is, and seeing if you want to do them. Anything's on the table. We are going to go back to square one. The only thing we're not going to go back to is projects that are not the high school. We are going back to a high school project to put 9th grade in the high school and make improvements to the high school. How we do it, we're going to decide together. We're going to do some value engineering and some cost variance. We're not going to be able to take what you got today and just clip it a little bit. We got to start over.
We had a road study done, I guess we never got the results of that. There's a lot of things before I can vote on something, I gotta have some answers.
Well, the answers are, we're going to involve all of you, more than you were before, to what are the ramifications of putting 9th grade in the high school. Nobody said where in the high school, and renovating it. That's the baseline. After that, all kind of roads and reuse and all that, that's what we got to record, put values on, talk to you about it, show you stuff. It would be premature, it would be very presumptuous of me to just make you that promise. I can't do it. That's the problem, that's the project. The project is 9th grade in the high school and renovating the high school. The cap that we've been given by everybody is $55 million. You may change that, you may lower it, you may raise it, we're gonna do it together.
And you think that's obtainable?
Not with the size building you just had. You're gonna have to cut that building significantly. All right, we're gonna put you on a diet. That's too much building. You cannot, I'll say it, you cannot afford that building. Arif told you before I did, so I'm not taking a huge risk here. But I'm gonna give you a building that we can all afford because I can't afford to have a second one of these things, and you certainly wouldn't want that either.
I have a comment. I think we are hiring the firm to renovate the high school to put 9th grade in with the vision that we will move the 6th grade into the middle schools to relieve the pressure on the elementary schools shortly. It's not a long-term answer for the elementary schools, but it's a immediate relief or very quick relief right now. So I think we ought to limit our questions not to what's going to happen, because I don't think you've had a chance to decide what's going to happen. I think it's up to you to present a proposal to us, and we yay or nay it.
Absolutely. Or
That's my feeling is right away. And the second thing, the most difficult part of your job, and I know it's difficult because you work on the commission, is to keep the price down.
Well, I have to keep it down because it's going to be fixed anyway, so I'm not going to benefit from running it up. And for heaven's sake, I don't want to be back where I was. You know, I get it. Okay? I mean, we will be fiscally responsible, and we will work with you.
Another question over here, Donna.
I just have a
PlanCon, yes.
process question. So we've already submitted many of the sections. In your experience, is it okay, and is it a problem to resubmit things we've already submitted?
I have a friend phone call to PD, and they talked to me for an hour, but I didn't use the word Boyertown, because there are some other people in this same boat, not because of cost, but because they put placeholder projects in and that year is running out. So I said, how much can you change a project? And basically what PD says, if you're following the plan that you set, which was to move, in this case, your case, 9th grade into high school, you're still doing that, and you're renovating the high school, that is still within the realm of doing it. And there are architects that have gone all the way through the process, gone out to bid without somebody like Arif around, and been over budget, and they redesign it, they do repeat those steps. So I had that discussion abstract, because I didn't want to use the word boy. First of all, you're not my client in a moment. I will talk to you sometime, whether I'm your client or not, about doing something to try to hold your places for those other 3 placeholder projects that are in, because they're coming up to 1 year. He talked to me for an hour. We have good relationships with the folks at the Department of Education.
Yes, one more question?
Yes, well, thank you for that, because that was another question I had.
It's a concern. You wouldn't want the whole thing to blow up.
Yes. And then this supplement, so...
It's also in the big book as well. It's all part of the big book.
Oh, okay.
The difference between the one that's in the big book, Arif added timelines to that one.
Okay, no, I think this is great, the deliverables. I just want to understand it. I think Dewey is going to present something, but this is a little more extensive than the contract we currently have with you, because you were not coming into the project until construction document phase.
Correct.
So is there a change in your fee or contract that we would have with
Well, that's
involved in these other phases?
Well, that's kind of you to ask, but that's what my last letter was about. Basically, what I was saying with that letter is, originally, we were hired in the construction documents phase. So what we were saying is our fee to do these earlier phases, and by the way, I was pushing this document before you even hired us. I mean, you know, this is the way it should be done. And if you do it that way, people are held accountable and you stay in control. But to answer your question, it's exactly what our letter is for, is to cover the concept planning phase, the schematic design phase, and the design development phase. It's exactly to
So
cover
is this
that
the letter
and get us
dated
back.
August 13th, not to exceed $75,000?
Correct, and if you look at number 7 on that letter, which is part of my next part of the presentation anyway, so it says anticipated pre-design phase services for scheduling, cost estimating, and scope review for new options being pursued, and that can be used to develop the scope for a future architect assignment. That's what I had foreseen that was going to need, and also, the other thing I think you need to give us some credit. I was forthright immediately in letting you know when our contract criteria was out of sequence and letting you know this immediately. You know, so I wasn't doing this because I want you to give us more work. I was doing this because I'm letting you know up front our contract limitations that you worked on with fever, scrutiny, your solicitor reviewed and put together. This scope wasn't part of it. And so what I was forewarning you is that we've been doing some things for you, and we're going to do some more things for you at your direction, and this is how we would do it. And that's all I was doing.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that this went with this, that there
Yeah.
wasn't a second letter coming.
I would never do that, Dan. I prepared all
I'm
these
just trying to
documents.
clarify, this is it. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I coordinated all the documents that I gave
Perfect.
Mr. Zablowski.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jay, for your presentation and your time, and we will get back to you.
Okay, so administratively, we'd like to ask this committee, with the presentations that you just heard from both KCBA and Dewey, about taking the step back in the senior high project. We do need an architect of record to move forward with this project, and the other 3 that are on the books of PlanCon. And it is an additional scope for Dewey. What administratively we're asking is that at Tuesday's meeting, September 10th, that you consider the appointment of KCBA at the defined terms that was presented tonight by Jay, and also to amend the Dewey engineering contract to allow up to $75,000 for the conceptual design through the design development.
Now that I understand the letter a little bit better, that was very helpful to have your chart. I would support both of those options for Tuesday night.
I have a question. Anybody would object to KCB as the architect? Any particular reason to object? Yes.
It doesn't have to do with them, but the management project fee went up quite a bit from your first presentation. And I never was quite clear when everybody was here and gave a presentation. You had one figure and then it went up quite a bit till we hired you. So I wasn't sure what that was all about. And I'd like a clarification on that.
But
Can we go back? The original question was about KCB
But,
firm, right?
all right.
You know, this outfit still, Dewey still has a presentation to do, and we can address the question at that time. Yes.
Well, so John, to try to answer your question, I guess I want to make sure I understand. So there is an element, crucial element of time, as I understand it. So we could lose any chance of PlanCon. Is that accurate? I just want to verify that.
Your high school project, since you've had action within a year, is not so critical. It's the other three that you probably need to do a couple little things just to keep them moving. But I don't want to mislead you. You're going to lose the element of time because the longer you wait, your needs are still out there with the elementary school, the middle school, and the teaching. But plan-con-wise, you're still okay for a while. You've done work within the last 12 months on the high school project.
Okay, so,
I don't want to mislead you.
okay, so.
You
it's-
do have a time element because you've got to do something because the kids keep showing up and education
Right.
needs to be revised. But from PDE standpoint, that particular high school project, you've done something in the last 12 months and that's still okay with that.
Right, yeah, it's more the element of the continued growth.
Right.
at the
For that.
elementary. Yeah, okay, thank you.
We have two items that we are deciding on tonight. And the first one was about the KCB firm. There's been nobody objecting to hiring them. So it would be okay to put that on the agenda for next meeting. Okay, thanks again, Jay. You better leave before we have more questions.
Quit while I'm ahead, one of those deals.
Okay, next. Go ahead.
Well, I think Arif just gave his proposal by reviewing the letter.
He may-
But
he
if
may
you
want
want to
to-
go into any more detail?
Not really. I mean, I know you have a busy night, and I think I've answered the questions, but I'll try to answer the last question that was proposed. I'm not sure specifically what the question was, but I can assure you that when we gave you a proposal, we had a number of options, and I think when the district finally contracted with us, they selected those options, and I think that might be some of the question, but our contract hasn't changed since we were hired in July 12th.
I'd say since you were hired, I said, from the presentation, the figures that were given at the presentation, and then when you were hired.
Remember that we had talked about the tight timeline of the high school and that we were probably going to be working 2 shifts, first and second. So you would add the second construction manager for the second shift.
At your request. Yeah, it wasn't at, I mean, it was at the district's request, and I gave you those optional numbers. And I think part of that was to compare against numbers you had from the other firms, but I didn't change any numbers. What I'm saying is there were options that we were asked for, and those were executed in that contract. I didn't change numbers. I gave you additional options, and those were incorporated in the contract.
Yeah, a question of you, given the scope of this project may be a little bit smaller from a new square footage view.
Yep.
We had projected, or you have included in your construction or your manager contract 23 months.
Correct.
What would happen if we get the project done in 20 months?
We will, as we've done in other projects, come back to you with a letter and offer those savings back to you if this project can be done with less time. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Our contract says 23 months. And likewise, if it's more than 23 months, I'll also send you a letter for that.
Different letter.
Different letter. But I will be on the ball. We will keep you informed, and I will not in any way mislead you at all.
And Mrs. Jarvis is asking clarification. The 23 months was the pure construction phase.
Only construction phase, man.
So that's when...
Because that was when the heavy staffing was
Right.
for managing the project. But the tasks that were outlined were for the construction documents phase. We were asked to review documents at 60% and 95%. We've done that and more to get you where you are. Unfortunately, it's not in a good place.
So you're still talking about the 2 shifts?
We still have 23 months and we still have 2 people available to you for that period if that's needed. If it's not, we will adjust our fee to you either way, depending what this final new project we decide as a group is going to be. If the project is going to be nothing, the other thing I'll point out to you is we have not sent you one extra bill beyond what we were contracted to do. So I will never invoice you for work that we have not done. So if you end the project, I will also not send you a bill for ending the project and put more agony on top of your current pain. So we will only invoice you for what is actually happening and what we actually do. If we do not need to do it, we will send you a letter letting you know what that credit would be, and certainly would never invoice you for it. And likewise, that's why I sent you the 75, because right now that scope was never part of our scope. So I'm going to try to be as fair as I possibly can, and you guys have been fair to us. And that's the way it's going to work. You're welcome.
Finally, it's a comment.
I just want to clarify for the board and for the audience that the administration is, based on the presentation this evening, is going to bring forward recommendation for the board to consider at the September 10th meeting for the engagement contract with KCBA and for Dewey's additional scope that was not included in their original contract to include the concept and schematic phase of the project. And that is not to include, or not to go above the $75,000 ceiling. So I want to make sure that everybody's clear that there will be two things coming forward on September 10th.
Thank you.
The next on the agenda is committee comments. I think we've made all our comments already. Yes. Oh, wait, one more.
I know we're getting into overtime here, but I just have some comments that I'd like to express. I'd like to thank Dr. Fadley for your leadership. I know this project is a major undertaking. We went through some serious pain recently, and a lot of things were up in the air. And I appreciate your leadership in addressing this in the very early part of your tenure with us. When you put up the slide as far as some of the reasons and the strategies behind it, they all still apply as they did a year ago. Between the growth, whether you believe this number or that number, we're definitely growing. And every time you pick up the paper, you read about more housing developments and this and that are approved, or developers or whatever. And as the economy continues to get better, unfortunately at a slower pace than any of us would like,
Yeah, right.
the growth will continue. And the fact that we can still capture those state dollars. And I think most importantly, and what I've heard from many members of the community, is that we will now be using the three-story 1934 building. And I know that was important to a lot of people. We have a heritage here in Boyertown, and that's a big part of it. So I think that's putting us back on the right track with that, so thank you.
Okay, any other comments, board comments? Comment period number 2. Two people, Chris Nyman wants to talk about the project.
Okay, first of all, no disrespect to you gentlemen. Nice job tonight. However, I still have a lot of questions and concerns. I still feel we're putting the cart before the horse. Why are we trying to start this project again when we don't know what's happening with EI Associates? They come back, they sue us for money. What are you going to do then? Where's that money coming from? Okay, it's also nice to have wants and needs. All the wants, though, do we need them? Let's give what the students need. The economy is not here to be doing all of the wants that you have in that design. Another thing is, how many of the administration live in the district? Even those of you that do live in the district, will you retire here in this community? Or people who that want and need all this stuff that they're saying we have to have? Once their children are out of school and they move on, are they moving out of here? They're leaving us with that big dollar expense. Are we utilizing all of the gray areas to the fullest possible capacity? So do we really need all of this renovation? Do we really need this project? Are we using the gray areas to their fullest possible capacity? You say we're looking at trying to get smaller class sizes. Then how are we preparing them for college? You're saying we want to give smaller class sizes at the high school? How are we preparing them for college? when college has very, very high volumes of students in them? Why are we needing to do this rush again, when in 3 months, we're going to be putting 5 new board members on this board? We can't wait another 3 months to make this decision? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next person, Ruth Baker, project scope.
Very briefly, things I've said before. Some of us, including possibly me, may be dead before the debt for this is paid off. Is that right to the next generations? At $55 million for a capital, the last estimate I saw from your financial advisors over 29 years of debt was $124 million. Why do we want to be like Daniel Boone? I can't figure this out. It just is not sensible or prudent. Please step back. You won't need to worry about PlanCon if you don't do the project because you won't need the reimbursement. The last time that 9th grade was proposed to go to senior high, as a rumor, the teachers union took an ad out in the Pottstown Mercury saying what a bad idea it was because of A, diminished student opportunities at senior high for athletics, B, deportment and other issues like that, dress, habits of older kids trickling down to younger kids, and you end up with a school so large at the high school that it's truly impersonal. It was impersonal enough when I was there, and we had probably 1,400 there before all the 92 renovations. If you insist on doing this sort of expensive and unnecessary project, please consider multi-story structures. Your roofs are one of the biggest capital things you ever have to deal with. If you put more stories underneath one roof area, you don't have as much roof area to spend millions of dollars fixing. Likewise, once again, look at the number of kids who are not going to Boyertown, and please look at the demographics. People are not having kids the way they used to. They may be moving into new houses, but they're not having kids at the rate they used to. And certain of the numbers in EI's study were not correct for population. They don't match PDE's data that Boyertown reported for enrollments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, that's the last person on the comment sheet. Announcements. On September 10th, we have a policy review committee meeting at the library in Bash Library at 5:30. And we have a school board meeting at the new auditorium at 7 p.m. September 17th, we will have another facilities committee meeting at the Ed Center here at 6 o'clock. And September 17th, finance committee meeting at 7 o'clock in the education center. Need a motion to adjourn.
And right now,
Oh,
a meeting.
oh, okay, yeah. Right after this, I'd say it's 7 o'clock we have a meeting, but we're kind of late. And we have an ad hoc committee meeting in this same room. Okay. We got a motion to adjourn, 7th, Mr. Nichols.
Yeah,
And we need 5 minutes to reorganize.
We're going to take a 5-minute break and begin at 7:21.
and board members, you may stay where you are.